Deadpool and Wolverine is the third installment of the Deadpool franchise and the official fusion between the Fox X-Men series and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, if you've seen the trailers, you know it features everyone's favorite Merc with a Mouth teaming up with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in a big multiverse-spanning adventure. And you can rest assured, there will be no spoilers in this video review. You are safe in the Cinema Snoop's hands. By the way, please subscribe. Now, I don't think I'm breaking any new ground here by saying that Marvel's been hitting a little bit of a dry streak lately. Following Endgame, the saga was continuing to lose steam with every new entry that was put out. And in Marvel's case, that was about 5 to 10 new movies and shows a year. With an over-reliance on multiverse shenanigans, absolutely abysmal visuals, and a general lack of direction, it's no wonder why audiences were losing interest in the franchise they once revered. And I haven't been too impressed with director Shawn Levy's past filmography. With the exception of 2011's Real Steel, of course, his movie catalog has not exactly instilled me with a lot of confidence. And speaking of disappointing filmographies, I'll just admit it, I've gotten tired of Ryan Reynolds. His whole shtick has very quickly worn thin with me, and now I see him as more of a brand ambassador rather than an actual actor. It's really just his Deadpool character where he seems to really shine. And now he's being paired up with Wolverine, the legendary superhero who already got a great ending with 2017's Logan. God, that was such a great film. When I first heard they were bringing him back, my eyes rolled so far back into my head that I'm pretty sure I could see my frontal cortex. But Hugh Jackman has been adamant that he has always wanted to see Wolverine team up with Deadpool. So I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt since it was clear that his heart was in this and it wasn't just for the money. Now of course he probably still got paid 7 dump truckloads worth of gold, but I digress. I say all of this to illustrate the fact that I was not super excited walking into Deadpool and Wolverine. Don't get me wrong, as a lifelong comics fan, I've always wanted to see these two heroes team up. It's just that it's following a masterpiece that already served as a definitive ending to the character's story, and it's coming out during a time where I'm quite frankly ready to be done with Marvel. But needless to say, I saw it. And as I sat in that theater auditorium, I took a look at some of the other reviews that have been posted online. I've seen a number of critics saying that this movie is dull and that it fails to deliver anything new, but I've also seen comic fans being absolutely overjoyed, saying that it's an absolute blast, especially when compared to the recent slew of Marvel films. And both of these groups are correct. Deadpool and Wolverine has problems. In fact, it has a lot of problems, and all of these issues are what I've sadly come to expect from MCU films as of late. But at the same time, I still found myself enjoying large sections of the movie, namely the titular heroes themselves. To no one's surprise, Deadpool and Wolverine is at its very best when it focuses on Deadpool and Wolverine. As mentioned before, Wade Wilson has become Reynolds' signature role, and he continues to kill it here. I wasn't overjoyed with the direction they chose to take his character, but as always, I found myself laughing out loud at most of his jokes. Now when it comes to the topic of the Hugh, I just gotta be honest and say he absolutely kills it here. It's abundantly clear that he can do this role in his sleep, because even when I'm dissatisfied with the storyline taking place in front of me, Jackman freaking sells every line he's given. He's able to balance the straight man role to Reynolds' motor mouth exceptionally well, while also straight up owning the badass action bits, while also delivering on the emotion. Now, do I think that all of this justifies him returning from Logan? Not really, but hey, I still enjoyed the heck out of it. I've heard that movies like 48 Hours and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles served as inspirations for the dynamic between these two, and I can 100% believe that. When they're on screen together, it's magic, and they do a lot of heavy lifting to make up for this film's shortcomings. As mentioned before, I enjoyed seeing the performances of these two heroes despite the story they're given to work with, because quite simply, the story here is non-existent. I said there'd be no spoilers in this review, but there's barely any plot to spoil. The reasons concocted for these two even being together are so half-assed and lazy. Just getting through the first act was a bit of a slog with the heavy amount of exposition we had to endure. And by the time things finally kicked off, I couldn't help but feel that I needed a bit more to be engaged. And sadly, the same quality of visuals that have plagued Marvel before are still present here. Guys, I don't know how to say this, but this might be the ugliest looking MCU movie I've ever seen. Yes, worse than No Way Home. The shots are so poorly composed that there were times where I felt like I was watching a freaking Super Bowl commercial. With the exception of a few action bits at the end, there wasn't anything dynamic about the filmmaking. Not only that, but there were quite a bit of visual effects that just didn't look finished. Maybe this film just needed an extra 2 months to let things sit in the oven a bit, but I don't know. There was stuff here that made the ending of Black Panther look like it was made by Weta Digital. Just not good. And yes, just like every other multiverse adventure, there are quite a number of cameos here. Some were expected, and others took me completely by surprise. If you do plan on seeing this, I'd recommend seeing it quickly to avoid the leaked reveals. Emma Corrin was good as the villain Cassandra Nova. She was certainly creepy enough, and I felt that she was portrayed as powerful enough to pose as a threat. I just wish we got to see more of her since she was barely in this movie. As were the rest of the Deadpool supporting characters, if I may add. Come on, man! I love this crew, and they're pushed off to the sidelines. I understand that this film's entire reason for existing was to team up Wolverine and Deadpool, but I've always felt like the supporting crew was a big reason as to why those first 2 movies worked so well. And when taking a big step back and evaluating the trilogy as a whole, this just didn't really feel like a satisfying third entry. The first film was such a breath of fresh air, especially in the midst of all the comic book films that were being released at that point. The sequel was definitely a step down and a bit jumbled in terms of its plot, but I still think I preferred both of those movies over this one. Again, I'm not saying this movie was complete trash. I will say that this was probably the funniest Deadpool movie of the bunch. I laughed a lot. If you're someone like me who constantly looks at movie news and obsesses over geeky stuff, then this comedy is going to hit right up your alley. I want all of you to know that I wasn't watching this film with my arms crossed, constantly scowling at the screen. I enjoyed a lot of it, and even found some of the action quite engaging. There was particularly one sequence at the end which was quite awesome, and you will know it when you see it. So there you have it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The very, very ugly. As a fan of comics and of these kinds of movies, I found a number of positives here. But I also can't just turn off my brain and ignore the glaring issues with the filmmaking. This is the very definition of a mixed bag. But I still think that if you're a fan of this stuff, you should see it, especially before all the funniest stuff makes its way online. I've been seeing a number of people saying that this film will save the MCU. And will it? Well, that's not really for me to decide. Don't get me wrong, this will absolutely make all of the money in the world. And I do believe that it will pull back a decent number of fans who have felt alienated by newer entries from the franchise in the past, but it won't do much to assuage the concerns that people have regarding its storytelling and technical aspects. And this is where I come to a crossroads, because even though the problems that recent Marvel movies have still remain present here, the movie also kind of makes fun of them? So does that give it a pass? Hell, I don't know. But I still found myself enjoying a lot of it. I'm going to give Deadpool and Wolverine a C+.